days of all my fellow gamers. I wanted to just do like a little showcase video since I finished my last two USCR Mercs miniatures. And I also wanted to talk about cheating, but the good kind of cheating. So I guess what I'll do is I'll cover the cheating first. Now, in painting, it takes a long time. Nobody likes to do it. And there's a common saying, if you want to find an easy way of doing something, ask a lazy person. Because they're not going to want to expend a lot of energy. And they're going to do things the most efficient way possible. So, I'm not too terrible lazy. I do a lot of hard work and all that good stuff. But when it comes to painting and whatnot, you want to maximize enjoyment by minimizing the tedium. And that's why I've gone to painting, small skirmish warfare games. Because, dude, I played Warhammer Fantasy Battles for a long time. And I've actually owned and fully painted 3 separate undead armies. And I painted a Tomb King's army on commission. It was just a nightmare. Even though undead's super easy, I have owned and painted all kinds of armies, and it takes a great deal of dedication to do that. But when you're painting these smaller scale skirmish battles, each one of these guys is different, so you don't have to, have the doldrum of, grinding out miniatures. Pardon. And so that's why I stick with these. Each one is different. Each one is fantastic. Even these 2 sculpts here, they're the same model technically, but it's a different sculpt. So anyway, let's move on to the cheating right here. Okay, you can see how these guys are all mostly this green color. That's their base color. And you probably would have thought that I prime these guys either black, because everything looks fairly dark, and it would be easy to paint up and leave the shadows and whatnot, or like a gray. I usually prime in gray. That's my preferred method, because you can see the details, and gray, it allows for dark and light coloring. So here we go. Here's my secret. I'm going to pick up this right quick. Boom. There's the green. That is the green. We're looking at woodland light green. And this is the stuff. It's actually very, very good paint. Now it says an ultra flat finish, that's good. You want that for models anyway. No drips, no runs, no errors, whatever. This cannot make that claim, because that's all climate related anyway, humidity and all that good stuff. So it says interior, exterior, all that good stuff. This is actually fantastic paint as a primer, and I use this with my US troops for bolt action. It's awesome. Does it match the olive green? Olive drab? No, it doesn't. It's lighter. But with these models, it does a fantastic job. And actually with the US models, it does a fantastic job, especially if you're weathering heavy and whatnot. You don't lose the green as if you would the olive drab. It's just completely freaking lost. Now, the one trade-off is you can do it, but I chose not to. I don't have any highlights on the green itself. I use the weathering, make it dingy dark, chipping and all that good stuff. And then if I'm going to do anything, I run the sand over that green. But mostly the sand is for the bags. But it works with the green as well, gives it a little dirt and thus highlight. I wasn't going to try to mix that aerosol, the lacquer that's in there, or is this oil based? It would probably have been oil based, but no, it would be lacquer. Oil based spray paints, it's goofy. What am I talking about? So anyway, Let's move on to these jokers, to the most offensive one. A lot of people don't like this guy. They don't like him so much that back in the day he got another sculpt. This is the juicer, that dude kicking down doors with his ugly boot. I guess people just didn't like that. He's kicking in a door or kicking someone's face in. Just deal with it, you know. That's what this guy does. And I do have to say, the bases on these models, they're nice resin bases, and I did not put them on here. I bought these, they're metal. I bought them secondhand, except for these two plastics in the back, which I just finished, and this gunner model. He's the seventh metal. He's a rarer model to get in metal, but all these are metal, and I have to hand it to the guy that I bought them from. He had Kimvar and he had USCR in a little pack. He did the brass work right here. This is brass rod. It's not the white metal rod, but he took the white metal pieces and drilled into them, and he did a fantastic job. There was some glue overspill and whatnot, but he may have fixed that when he came to painting it. I don't know what level of a guy this gentleman was, but he put the bases on and he put extra ballast around, so he wanted them to look awesome. I hope that, you know, he watches the video and is like, yeah, that's awesome. We'll see. Maybe one fine day. But the Behemoth, this is the heavy that everybody loves. In earlier rule configurations, he just had armor that was through the roof. Now they've kind of wussified him in the new rules. Yeah. So anyway, just an impressive model. No matter, you know, what genre you go into, that's a cool model. May as well go into his plastic that I just finished. And actually, I was lucky enough to get a straight haft on his hammer. Most plastics will warp, twist, bend, and you have to use the hair dryer, or what some poor sufferers do is the hot water treatment. But yeah, with, you know, spraying this all that green, you would think, man, that's a paint. You can't paint over that, but you can do a light coat. I mean, look at the light grays that I achieved, you know, and this is achieved with stinking old craft paint, 99 cents, man. Come on, you know, old stinking craft paint. You can do it. I mean, new stinking craft paint would do it too, but you know, I stuck some tufts in his rocks and got some bricks going on there. I did not do the black surface area. I'm like, man, that's kind of, there's not a big enough chunk. If there was a big enough chunk to do some, you know, at least 2 white lines, then it would be worth it. But that little bitty chunk there, I wasn't going to do just 1 white line. It's lame. But anyway, he's looking pretty righteous. Very angry dude doing the overused superhero pose. But you would think somebody with giant armor would do stuff like this, because they can actually crack that concrete. This is the second heavy for USCR. Pardon. The resin bases all came from the same guy that I got the metals from. It's just that he had Kimvar on the resin bases. So I stripped the Kimvar off their resin bases, and I made kind of custom bases for them. But you can see you know, from when you guys left off after the washing video, it's just doing the 2 coats. That is the chipping compound. I do craft paint for the win, baby. So I do this chocolate bar, and see, it's chipping paint, and you know, you gotta write on the tops because gamers are finicky and they switch from subject to subject. And then the P3 cold steel, just because I had this mess. Metal paint is metal paint wherever you go, basically, unless you're doing GW stuff. And I know The early P3s really were terrible metallics. And what's funny is that Games Workshop had fantastic metallic paints, but then as time progressed, you basically need a stirring machine, the little shaker machines, to get the paint shaped to a consistency that you can use without it just sliding off your brush. So all I did was 2 coats of gray. Once again, that's craft paint. And then the 2 coats for the chipping. And that is just monotonous. And I don't do the sponge method. The sponge method lacks control. But what I do is I just, just tip, 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 tip. I dot it. I almost stipple it, but it's with the side of the brush. Well, the side at an angle, so I'm not going to make this huge all over. But I just, tip, 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 tip all over with the brown. And then I just do smaller tips with the steel. And that way you get that nice brown in there with the steel color. It's just fantastic. So this cat was pretty easy to do, especially since most of them is that green. And the black that I'm using, it's a nice black, isn't it? Yeah, craft paint. So those are the plastics done. You wouldn't really know that they're plastic, unless you know, But yeah, just old apple barrel paint. I mean, look at it, man. I used the mess out of it. This has probably been with me 10 years. No joke. I'm not joking. So here, what have we got? This is the mechanic. No, what am I talking about? This is the leader. Yeah, this is the combat leader. The guy with the old ice grenades. Even though they're not modeled on him. He sure has some extra rounds, but he doesn't have those ice grenades, man. Where are those things? Anyway. Yeah, just a fat dude in armor with weird toe boots. So that's the combat leader. Here, this is Yon Medic. Or not Medic. That's the dude with the... This is the monkey wrench dude. The guy that fixes your stuff. Oh, he had a little piece of skull there. Very dark for mercs, but okay. So, and here I keep saying medic, medic, medic. There you go. He actually has this little pack I was able to paint up with like red vials in there and then white. Just, it emphasizes. And everyone wants to put tattoos on these bare arms and stuff like that. What if these guys don't want tattoos? Don't force them into life choices that they don't want to make, guys. So, but this leads to another thing. You see how it's gloss varnished there? Those 2 tubes. If you're going to paint something that you're already going to have gloss varnished, okay, you don't need to paint a bunch of goofy light reflecting stuff on there. Just let the gloss do its work. You see right there, you could have put a little line of white with some dots on it or something to denote that it was reflecting. But if you just leave it the base color and just cover it with your gloss varnish, it's gonna look really nice. And you don't have to do a bunch of work on it. So these guys, I mean, it's just tedium of chipping. But I really love the effect of chipping. This guy is something that people complain about. Okay, he has a harpoon gun, but he's called a sniper. And his harpoon gun it's got these spools of thread. It's like, dude, why? Maybe he hunts humans. He might be cannibalistic. I don't know. But yeah, they call him a sniper. He's got a little optic there that's just weird, but yeah, he's a different guy. He's different. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Snipers you expect to have projectiles that are kind of crazy. And that brings us to our gunner. Very cool running pose, a more modern pose for him. He doesn't have bags on his arms, which is strange for the group. And here I want to talk a little bit about the highlighting on these pants and all this black highlighting. When you're going around and painting initially, your lines aren't going to be that thin. They're just not. The brush isn't really going to be that thin. You can get most of it pretty thin, but what you want to do afterwards, just to make everything look nice, is go back with black and trim the lines, because the nature of the brush, you're going to have some fuzzies, you're going to have some throw-offs, maybe your paint isn't thinned properly or whatnot, which that's my case because I'm always dipping out of the pot itself. I don't follow old Duncan and Mike McVeigh and all those dudes that want to put paint onto a wet palette and thin it real down and whatnot. You know, it's good, it works for you guys and whatnot. I'm not all about having a giant flat thing of water here with a wet napkin in it. It's just not my thing. So anyway, you just take it on each side and you just trim it up how much you want. And if you want a really sharp point, you can go and paint and then go in front of it, wow, and just wipe out some of that line that you did. Just wipe it out, and that's going to give you a really sharp point at the end. So and then you can see where I dusted some of that with the that yellow. Actually, the yellow can go all over the model. And what you want to do after you apply the yellow with your little applicator sponge thing, I'll show you. You got this crazy applicator sponge. You don't need too much. See, that side actually still has a load on it. Do you see the difference? That's a lot brighter. That's what I was using. So you go and you just rub a little bit. Yeah. And then you rub over the surface of your model. You can kind of see here on the case how that edge has got a lot of yellow on it. That's just because it's a high edge, and the yellow naturally goes on those high edges. Well, after you're done applying the yellow, now you can be messy, okay? But after you're done applying the yellow, if you have too much on it, they have this little brush end of that, and brush off the main components, brush off the big particles, and then you take your finger and rub. You can rub some of that stuff off, and it would also blend it, and it looks great. It just really looks fantastic. So I've gone over the rust effects before. Oh, there's another skull, peekaboo. But yeah, these guys were base coated basically with that green paint. And whenever you guys can cut corners like that, I suggest you do it. It saves so much time, so much frustration, especially if you're painting, like you prime something one color, all you have to do is pick out things. You pick out the pants, pick out the bags, pick out the metal. 1, 2, 3, the eyes for red, 4, boom. You know, you are done. And that's why I didn't mind doing the chipping effect all over this guy, because I felt like the process was so much easier. You know, so find what shortcuts work for you. You know, me cutting out a wet palette, you really don't need it. You know what I got? I've got a palette right here, one of these little metal ones. I got that from like Hobby Lobby, man. Like, what is this, $1 or something? And in this, I'm just mixing a lighter shade of purple for my nameless, and craft paints for that too, bruh. So yeah, you don't need a bunch of goofy stuff to paint. It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be stressful. Actually, it's the opposite. It's supposed to de-stress you. It's fun to do this stuff, to make these little dudes look, kind of realistic, kind of grimy, kind of, gnarly, and make fun models too. You can make goofy things. But anyway, the point is about enjoying it, and part of enjoying it is finding those shortcuts. Make it easier on yourself, and do things right. Clean your models before you paint them, because going back and having to scrape mold lines off of a primed model, that's the best stage to do it, kind of, to catch it. But if you're laying down paint, you're like, oh man, that's a mold line, that's not detail. Then that's when things start to make you want to cry a little bit. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and just have a wonderful day. All right, carry your lays on.